I'm Kate Czaplinski with the day's latest local news, and later on a preview of our newspapers this week. Frank Renita will have a look at your forecast and your Nutmeg sports update, and Donald Eng will join us later to take a look back on this day in history. But first, an update today in a Stanford woman's murder investigation. Hearst, Connecticut media reports that Eden Claxton, who was murdered in her Westover home on Monday morning, died after her throat was slit. That, according to the state's chief medical examiner. Now, an autopsy on Claxton, who was 74 years old, showed that she was killed by sharp force injury to the neck and extremities. Now, the office of the chief medical examiner has ruled her death a homicide. Now, no charges have been filed in that case yet, but police want to assure the public that Claxton's death was an isolated incident. Now, Police Captain Richard Conklin said investigators are actively pursuing leads in the case and are working with the Stanford State's Attorney's Office, who are supervising the development of any arrest warrants coming in the case. Now, Conklin also declined when talking to Hearst, Connecticut media to discuss what investigators believe happened in that Westover home, where Claxton's husband, Alan Claxton, was present at the time. And in Darien, on June 7th, a Norwalk man was charged with harassment and stalking an ex-girlfriend after allegedly sending her 400 texts, calling her 75 times, and sleeping on her front porch. Now, that victim contacted police from a friend's home after midnight, explaining that she had been attempting to end her relationship with 58-year-old Alan Bogardus since Memorial Day. However, he continued to come to her house uninvited, and the victim told police that they had also received dozens of unwanted text messages and phone calls from Bogardus. On June 5th, Bogardus had allegedly slept on the victim's porch uninvited and texted 20 times. Now, upon arriving home on June 7th after an evening in New York City, that victim saw Bogardus's car in her driveway, making her feel unsafe. Well, Darien police came and located Bogardus's vehicle in a wooded area near that victim's residence, but Bogardus was not inside. Now, while searching, officers say the victim informed them that Bogardus had texted her, informing them that he was walking home, presumably due to seeing officers near his car. Now, officers then found Bogardus approximately a quarter of a mile from that victim's home. Bogardus did state to police that he often parks near the victim's home, sleeps on the porch, and throws small rocks at the victim's bedroom window to alert them to his presence. There is more on that story at DarienTimes.com. And authorities in the state say quick thinking by a library director saved an overdose victim. Now, the Norwich Bulletin reports that a person overdosed Monday at the Otis Library in Norwich. Now, Library Executive Director Robert Failwell sprang into action using naloxone to help save that person. Now, Farwell says the library got a supply of the opioid overdose antidote last month. He says the overdose was an unfortunate incident, but he's happy that he got the necessary training. Now, there were 33 accidental overdose deaths in Norwich in 2017, compared to 126 deaths between 2012 and 2017. Police attribute the increase to the use of fentanyl. Now, Norwich Police Sergeant Nick Rankin says the department does not carry any naloxone because of some training issues. Connecticut State Police, however, carry the drug and are trained to use it. And this time of year, hanging bird feeders attract a wide range of colorful birds and at least a few optimistic squirrels out to steal the birds' lunch. But according to the state's environmental agency, those feeders also ring the dinner bell for black bears. Now, black bears are attracted to garbage, pet food, compost piles, fruit trees, and bird feeders around houses. That, according to the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Now, DEEP wrote in a press release last week that residents should not fill their bird feeders from late March through November. And if residents want to have a bird feeder up, the release said, then it should hang at least 10 feet above the ground and 6 feet away from any tree trunks. Now, as seen in that photo, Sue Gillis, a Ridgebury resident, said she had a black bear wander through her yard over Memorial Day weekend. Now, DEEP also recommends storing your garbage cans inside a garage or shed to keep those bears out and adding ammonia to trash to make it unpalatable. Now, grills should also be stored away after use, as well as pet food, meat, or anything sweet being kept out of your compost piles. More tips at theridgefieldpress.com. And the original Stratford High School building now has a connection to its future, one that passes right over King Street. Now, our Stratford Star reports that construction crews working on the renovation of the SHS installed last Friday the most notable feature of that high school, a new pedestrian bridge that will link the current building built in 1925 to the new western wing across the street. Now, town and Stratford officials watched that crew install the bridge, which spans 70 feet across King Street and is 4.5 feet wide and 13.5 feet tall. fall. Now, components for that bridge, which weighs about 60,000 pounds, were delivered to the renovation construction site on March 27th, though it had to be built over the course of about 10 weeks. Now, that bridge is being supported by newly installed columns outside of the building, according to Public Safety Director Larry Ciccarelli. Now, there's a lot more on that project right now at StratfordStar.com. But taking a turn now, we're going to throw it over to Frank Granito to get a look at your forecast. Frank.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Mostly sunny skies expected throughout the day with temperatures up into the low 80s, a little more humid than we've seen the past few days, and a light breeze around 15 miles per hour. Mostly clear overnight and a low of 60 degrees. We'll see temperatures cool down a little bit. Comfortable conditions the next few days. Sunny skies. Temperatures right around 75 degrees, and that will be the case heading into the weekend. But around Sunday, Father's Day, things will start to warm up, and we could see temperatures jumping up into the mid-90s starting next week. That's going to do it for this weather update. Let's go back over to Kate.
All right, thanks so much, Frank. We're going to step out for a break. We'll come back. Donald Hang will have a look back on this day in history. We have more local news and your Nutmeg Sports update after this. Spring is in bloom, and so are the deals at Honda of Westport's Dream Garage Spring event. See and test drive the all-new 2018 Honda Clarity 110 MPG plug-in hybrid sedan. Stop in today and see why we've been named Deal Rater's Dealer of the Year for the 4th year running. Honda of Westport, where peace of mind is part of the deal. Get a fresh start to the new year by shaking up your meal routine. Walter Stewart's Market is your local source for a delicious selection of fresh and convenient salad shakers, like Southwest salad with chicken, Cobb with organic chicken, Power Vegan with fruit and quinoa, Greek salad with tabbouleh, and grilled shrimp with hominy. Grab one from our salad case or order from our deli today. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Dr. Stephen Molinaro and Peter Healy of Family Practice Dentistry and Laser Dental Care have served Ridgefield for over 22 years. Experienced staff offer gentle drillless techniques, preventative care, and cosmetic procedures in a relaxed environment. Grateful for the community's trust and support through the years, new patients and their families are welcome. Call today.
I've had Newtown Savings Bank my whole life. You don't have to worry about talking to a machine. You're talking to real people. You're getting real help. I'm banking local, and I'm loving it.
Welcome back to this June 14th edition of your Coffee Break on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, and before we get back to your local news, we're going to take a look back on this day in history with Donald Eng. Don.
Well, Kate, thank you very much, and a happy Flag Day to everyone out there, especially if you live in Pennsylvania, the only state in the Union that recognizes it as a state holiday. We'll get more on that in a second. First, though, we go to 1775, the American Revolutionary War, the Continental Army, established by the Continental Congress, and George Washington appointed to command it. Now, the Continental Army essentially disbanded after the Treaty of Paris in 1783, although 2 regiments did remain to form the Legion of the United States, which was later renamed the United States Army in 1796. Now to 1954, on Flag Day, President Dwight Eisenhower signs a bill into law placing the words "Under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. It was the 4th and by far most controversial change to the pledge, which had been written in 1892 by Baptist minister Francis Bellamy. Now, the change had been voted down in Congress twice, but with the Cold War heating up and Eisenhower's personal pastor urging him to adopt the words, Eisenhower signed the bill, thereby injecting a little bit of a religious war into the Cold War, essentially designating the United States as a Christian nation fighting the communists. Speaking of controversial words, 1966, the Vatican announces the abolition of the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, that is the Index of Prohibited Books. Originally instituted in 1557, the index made it a mortal sin to read any book that was on the list. Now, over the years, that index included books by Galileo and Copernicus. Also, Madame Bovary made the list. Last Temptation of Christ was also on the list. So was Les Miserables, of all things. I hope, by the way, when they abolished the list, they pardoned everyone that was already damned for reading Les Mis. I'll have to look into that. Finally, now we go to 1777 for this.
Congress adopts the Stars and Stripes. The facsimile of the original resolution passed by the Continental Congress June 14, 1777, adopting the flag of the United States. This resolution was proposed by John Adams, later a President of the United States. A significant part of this resolution is the words, 13 stars white in a blue field representing a new constellation. It is in these words that we find the very soul and spirit of the American flag.
As Stars and Stripes adopted by the Continental Congress this date as the flag of the United States, which is why today is Flag Day. Interestingly, seamstress Betsy Ross is widely credited with stitching the first American flag, and it's plausible. She had been working as a flag maker for the Pennsylvania Naval Militia at the time, so it could have happened. Ross herself has a fascinating story life, by the way. Widowed twice in the American Revolutionary War. She married for a third time at age 31, then had 5 more children for a total of 7, all daughters. She died in 1836, and in 1975, when plans were made to move her remains to the Betsy Ross House in Philadelphia, workers discovered there were no remains under her headstone. We've lost Betsy Ross. Also, there's no evidence that Betsy Ross ever lived in the Betsy Ross House. That is your look back in history for today, June 14th, and I'm Donald Ng.
All right, thanks so much, Don. Well, in other local news, the daughter of a Cambodian refugee who is a Trumbull High School freshman is raising money to help Cambodian children get an education. Now, visiting Cambodia last summer, Trumbull High student Emily Kong was struck by the sight of children, many of them under 10 years old, working long hours to help support their families. Now, in a country where 45% of children are forced to work every day and only 20% of girls reach high school, those who receive even an elementary level of education can be considered the lucky ones. Now, Emily's father, Chenda Kong, is a survivor of one of the most devastating genocides in history, what became known as the Killing Fields. Now, Emily's aunt and uncle were among those who died of starvation. Well, Chenda and his parents managed to escape the Killing Fields, making their way to a Red Cross refugee camp in Thailand, and the following year they were relocated to the Philippines. Now, those surviving family members eventually reached the United States in 1982. Well, now Chenda's daughter Emily has started a fundraising page at GoFundMe.com/Countless Cares for Cambodia, and it's to assist Cambodian children get an education by sending them individual school supply pouches. Now, the goal right now is to raise $1,000, and you can find a link to that and get so much more on their family story at TrumbleTimes.com. And Ridgefield students organized a Stand Up to Hate event in Ballard Park on June 10th. Now, that gathering was a response to a series of swastika drawings and graffiti and other forms of hate speech that have marred the town over the last 18 months. Now, it was not the only event focused on ending bigotry that day. Just 3 hours before the rally in the park and a few blocks away, the town's youth commission unveiled its kindness mural on the side of the Barn Teen Center. Now, high school junior Sarah DeLange said she came up with the Ballard Park event after she discovered a swastika etched in a table in her art classroom back in September 2017. Now, for more on that event, including some video, you can visit theridgefieldpress.com. And in other news, Monroe's Wolf Park will be host to quite a performance venue if a group of dedicated residents have their way. Now, the Monroe Arts and Culture Council, led by President Donna Verdisso, has provided a project concept for review for the creation of a performance pavilion to be put at Wolf Park. Now, the concept was on the town council agenda Monday, but had to be tabled until the next council meeting because a project representative was unable to attend that meeting to provide some additional information. Now, according to the proposal, the development of such a pavilion will help further Monroe's Economic Development Commission's goal of driving tourism in the town of Monroe, as well as building cultural vitality through performing arts, music, theater, and dance production. Now, that new facility would provide a more professional and better equipped venue, according to organizers, and help draw top performers and events. Now, Verdisso stated in the overview that fundraising efforts are already underway, and there is a desire across the community to continue those fundraising efforts. She wrote that the project is needed to be quoted at this time in order to finalize budget requirements, but it is estimated to be between $300,000 and $500,000. She said costs would include the foundation, staging, lighting, and the speakers. More on that story at MonroeCourier.com. And former state senator George Doc Gunther's name will live on in Stratford at the entrance leading to Long Beach, as it'll be named for him. Now, the town council voted unanimously at its meeting on Monday to name the park's entrance George Doc Gunther Way. Now, in the resolution approved by the council members, Gunther was honored for his work in the state legislature, where he introduced bills that would come to redefine environmental policy for our state. Now, he also co-authored the first legislation to preserve tidal wetlands. Now, Gunther, a Republican, served as the 21st District State Senator from 1966 to 2006. He died in 2012 at the age of 92. More on that story at StratfordStar.com. And as Don mentioned earlier, of course, today, June 14th, is Flag Day, and communities are holding ceremonies throughout the region, including in Ridgefield, where this year's Flag Day ceremony will be held at 7 p.m. at Ballard Park Gazebo and commemorate the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. Now, this special ceremony will be conducted by members of the American Legion and the Marine Corps Detachment of Ridgefield. Now, that program will feature a colorful look at the Battle of Belleau Wood, one of the most important battles ever fought by the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, in addition to some short speeches and patriotic music, the Marine Corps will also demonstrate the proper and legal means of retiring worn, faded, and unserviceable flags. More on that event at theridgefieldpress.com. But let's throw it back over to Frank Granito now for your Nutmeg Sports Update. Frank.
All right, Kate. The U.S. Lacrosse Magazine / Nike released their final top 25 poll of the year, and a big congratulations to the state champion Ridgefield Tigers, who finished 13th overall in the nation, highest public school in Connecticut. Right behind them, you had Darien, who lost just one game this year to Ridgefield in the state championship at 14. Brunswick School out of Greenwich finished ranked 5th overall in the nation. Their only loss against Salisbury earlier this season, and for the first time ever, Culver Academy out of Indiana won the national championship. Want to offer good luck to Theo Humphrey of Greenwich and Cameron Wilson of New Canaan as they start their quest in the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills out on Long Island this afternoon. And make sure you tune into Nutmeg Sports this afternoon as we have our year in review show looking back on the fall, winter, and spring seasons in the FCAC. That's going to do it for this Nutmeg Sports Update. Let's go back over to Kate.
All right, thanks so much, Frank. And we're going to step out for a break. Come back. John Kovach joins me to preview our newspapers this week after this.
Voted Best Gourmet to Go in Fairfield County, Palmer's extensive menu offers everything you'll need to make your next event easy and delicious. Whether you're hosting a small get-together or planning a large celebration, they've got you covered breakfast through dessert. Order online at palmersdarien.com or call 203-655-2077.
Want to free up backyard space, or are you just sick of looking at your deteriorating pool? Call Guerrilla Pool Removal today, the in-ground pool fill-in experts. Pay a fraction of the cost and pool remodel by filling it in with our experienced crew. Available 7 days a week by call or text. Find out more at GorillaPoolRemoval.com. Want to free up...
Welcome back to this Thursday edition of your Coffee Break on the HAN Network. I'm joined now by our editorial director, John Kovach, to preview our newspapers out today. John, what are you looking at first?
In the Trumbull Times, a story you just brought us on Coffee Break, and it's a fascinating story of a girl, a freshman at Trumbull High, a child of a refugee from the killing fields who's working to improve lives of children in Cambodia. A little coverage of the first debate of Republican gubernatorial candidates leading up to the primary, and seniors are going to have a new place in Trumbull and 2 titles coming home to St. Joe's, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on Nutmeg Sports at 2.
All right, taking a look at the Easton Courier this week. John, you might not have been aware that there is a National Llama Appreciation Day, but it was celebrated recently at the Mark Twain Library with a llama named Samuel Clemens.
That is information that someone should have given me long before now.
Does the Easton llama know that?
I hope.
All right.
Find out.
Well, either way, there's some great photos from Brian Haefele.
Stratford and Bunnell will have their graduations tonight. You can read about the valedictorians in the Stratford Star. Also look at the very cool bridge that's going in between the existing Stratford High over King Street to the new addition. And we'll be having an update very shortly on Prez Palmer's petition. Watch StratfordStar.com for the latest on that.
All right, taking a look at the Monroe Courier this week. Ongoing investigation, but a man died from a gunshot wound at the Stevenson Dam. Police said there was no indication of foul play there, that his identity has not been released. In other news story, we just mentioned pavilion plans back in the spotlight, talking about a new concert venue pavilion in Wolf Park. Also, Jill Silvestro, a Fawn Hollow Elementary second grade teacher, named Monroe's top teacher of the year, and some nice photos from Fawn Hollow's 50th anniversary celebration.
Shelton students could face pay-to-play fees as the schools work to make up a deficit. A student embarking on a musical career. The end of the gubernatorial campaign for Shelton Mayor Mark Loretti and Shelton's Teacher of the Year, all in today's Shelton Herald.
All right, taking a look at the Wilton Bulletin this week. Wilton's Relay for Life raising more than $39,000. Also, legislators and candidates discussing guns in Wilton at a recent forum. A Holocaust survivor spreading a message of freedom, and the Hall of Fame gains 4 new members. Very cool.
A lawsuit has been filed against the Weston Conservation Commission over the dog park that was just approved, and Weston filmmakers are winning awards.
All right, taking a look at the Ridgefield Press this week, a sewer project's cost climbing to $48 million. Also some great photos, of course, of the Ridgefield High School boys lacrosse team celebrating this past weekend. An alpaca joining a camel that now lives on North Street. Now, there's been a lot of pushback on this from residents who live nearby being concerned about it, but the folks who live there are running an animal sanctuary and rescue there. Also, wetlands and elections should the charter change, talking about some potential changes there. And a longtime school nurse saying goodbye to Ridgebury.
The Darien Board of Education has appointed an interim superintendent, and after 22 years, Pear Tree Point School is closing. We'll also visit Darien's Urban Garden, check out a new water sampling program, and the Beautification Commission has been reduced in size, that due to lack of volunteers.
All right, taking a look at the New Canaan Advertiser this week, just a story with a good ending here, and that's that an AED saved a runner's life. That runner collapsed at Waveney Park, but Jim Gerwick, who's an active runner in the area, brings an AED with him to all these running events, thankfully, and it helped save this person's life. So good news there. Also, planning and zoning okaying public safety radio antennas for areas of town. The fountain flows as Waveney wows, just kind of a nice feature on what's happening at Waveney Park. And of course, the New Canaan Rams girls lacrosse team celebrating.
Lots of school news in Milford. Check milfordmirror.com for coverage of the law and foreign graduations, a shot of the girls at Laurelton Hall completing their high school careers, the school board approving a capital improvement plan, the opening of a new DMV Express, and the daughter of a firefighter awaiting a liver transplant.
All right, looking at the Reading Pilot this week, Georgetown Day drawing hundreds of people, being a major success, and some highlights and photos from that event in this week's Reading Pilot.
Our Arts and Leisure section sings the praises of strawberries and catches up with a dancer from Darien.
And of course, check out our home section in all our papers this week. Some nice features on pools with all the bells and whistles if you want to get a new pool, and summer flowers, a feast for the eyes. All right. That's what's in print this week, but it's a busy day on the HAN Network. Coming up at noon, we have a brand new episode of Straight Talk with Tracy. She has 2 special guests on to talk about vaping among young people, preteens and teenagers. So really a lot of information that parents should know. That's coming up at noon. John, you have Yankee Fisherman at 1 o'clock.
We'll be talking with the maker of Dead in the Water, which takes a look at New England's commercial fishing industry. We'll get you ready for Father's Day and talk about a whole lot of fishing news that's going on.
All right, and then a special Nutmeg Sports coming up at 2 o'clock. We're going to wrap things up here on your coffee break, but we'll see you tomorrow at 11 with the latest local news and more. Have a great day.